When New Super Mario Bros. Came out on the Nintendo DS in 2006, the entire world flipped their poop. Because after 1990's Super Mario World all the way back on the Super Nintendo, the 2D Mario series had just been sitting on its lazy ass. Sure, there were a few Game Boy games, but even though those were fun, they were still just weird since Miyamoto didn't even work on them. The reason 2D Mario had become MIA for so long, though, is because once 3D gaming became a thing, 2D gaming was looked at as archaic, and just like my love life, nobody wanted to go anywhere near it, aside from my ex-wife Chili. But it's a shame that 2D Mario took such a long hiatus, cause the Game Boy Advance would have been perfect for an original game or two. And apparently I wasn't the only one who felt this way, cause the New Super Mario Bros. Series released 4 games since 2006 that all sold out the ass. Even despite the complaints that the new series couldn't hold a candle to the classic games. And with the hilariously yet appropriately named New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe showing up on the Switch, I thought now'd be as good a time as any to put the classic series against the new series to determine which one's better once and for all. And I know this seems like an open and shut case since the classic 2D Mario games did a lot to push gaming innovations, while the new Super Mario Bros. Series played it safe because Nintendo's priorities were always focused on the 3D series. But if you forget about all that, the new Super Mario Bros. Games are still fantastically designed. So to keep this from being a one-sided fight, I'm gonna make it illegal for the classic series to rely on nostalgia, innovations to gaming, or any other unfair advantages. So make yourself comfortable, stop sniffing your dad's favorite glue, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the world's second finest referee, Cameron, to call this right down the middle. Alright, so I'm gonna divide this up into 7 categories. First, I'm gonna pit all the games in each series against each other in 4 separate one-on-one matches in the respective orders in which they were released. And I'm not gonna be including remakes, enhanced ports, or anything that's just gonna complicate things. Also, Yoshi's Island is a Yoshi game with Super Mario World stuck in the title to trick people into giving it a chance, so that's not gonna be included here either. Lastly, the final 3 categories are gonna be decided by the overall combined quality of all 4 games in each series in terms of graphics, sound, and gameplay. So let's get started with the first matchup of the original Super Mario Bros. Versus New Super Mario Bros. You may think comparing these 2 games without nostalgia being taken into consideration is unfair. And, well, yeah, you'd be completely right. Because despite how much the original Super Mario Bros. Did for gaming as a whole, it just doesn't hold up nearly as well without nostalgia. Don't get me wrong, Super Mario Bros. Balances difficulty out perfectly from beginning to end without any cheap bullshit that was common on the NES. The game's just flat out fun and always will be, even if you don't know the history behind it. But if you wipe somebody's memory of Mario and had them play through this game from start to finish, I don't think it'd leave the same impression on them, even if you updated the graphics. And for me to say that it's a better game than New Super Mario Bros. Without nostalgia blinders on would just be dishonest. Yeah, the Mega Mushroom's only fun like the first 2 times you use it, while the Blue Shell's just flat out annoying. And while I think the Mini Mushroom's underrated as hell, there really wasn't a power-up that defined the game. And even though this game that's supposed to be a throwback's missing something as essential as Yoshi, it still has everything Super Mario Bros. Has and then some. Plus, the level design's more carefully thought out, with way more variety in the types of stages and platforming challenges you'll have to overcome. I don't feel like I need to explain this one, but at the same time, I'm sure I'm gonna get an awful waffle in the comments from people who forgot nostalgia isn't allowed. So the first point goes to the new Super Mario Bros. Series. Classic 0, New 1. Now it's time for New Super Mario Bros. Wii versus, well, technically it should be the Japanese Mario 2, but Doki Doki Panic was what Mario 2 was originally supposed to be before it became a licensed game. And since Shigeru Miyamoto spent all of his time on that and barely even looked at the Japanese Mario 2, I think we can all agree that the real Mario 2 is the game we got outside of Japan. Or at least we could pretend that it is anyway. But before you call me a hypocritical winky for not counting Yoshi's Island as a real Mario game, just know that my reasoning for that's because many NES sequels tried something completely different and are still considered a part of the main series like Zelda 2. Basically, I consider Mario 2, aka Super Mario USA, to be like an adopted straight-A student, and the Japanese Mario 2 to be like a drug-addicted problem child who was conceived from an orgy that Miyamoto was barely even a part of. But does Super Mario USA's status even matter anyway? Obviously, the Japanese Mario 2 doesn't stand a chance against New Super Mario Wii, so does Super Mario USA really fare any better? Well, it's hard for me to say since I really love both of these games. But at least it's easy for me to leave nostalgia out of my mind because, for some unearthly reason, there's never been another game with Mario 2's gameplay mechanics to compare it to, aside from the Game Boy Advance remake that had some extra sauce on it. Which is a real shame because there's a lot of untapped potential here. There may not be any power-ups aside from the Invincibility Star, but the game feels fresh from start to finish with tons of memorable enemies and just some weird-ass imaginative shit going on. But then again, Mario Wii's controls are tighter than a dolphin's ass, and it had me hooked the entire time I 100%ed it. However, if I had to pick which of these 2 games I like better, I'd say Mario 2 wins by an ass hair just for having more variety and no forced motion controls. And the motion controls didn't bother me that much, but much like my neighbor Terry's entourage, I'd much rather them not be around. Classic 1, New 1. Now it's time for Super Mario Bros. 3 versus New Super Mario Bros. 2. And I've gotta be honest, this is the easiest point for me to decide, cause New Super Mario Bros. 2 is what I consider to be the worst 2D Mario game of all time. At least with nostalgia, anyway. Even as a standalone game, it just feels lazy, cause the entire gimmick revolves around collecting coins just to keep you busy. And busy work's never a fun gameplay mechanic. It'd have been a little better if you could spend the coins on some new outfits, bonus stages, or unlockables. But all you get for reaching a million coins is a new title screen and this stupid-ass shirt that you're guaranteed to get beat up for wearing. If you're trying to get these rewards, it basically feels like a play-to-win game meant to tempt the player into spending money to avoid grinding, but it forgot to have paying as an option. This game is still worth playing though, even if you've never played a Mario game before, so it's nice when the worst game in a series is still pretty good. Plus, the gold flower is still satisfying to use, and the Tanuki Tail is just as fun as it was in Mario 3, but Super Mario 3 had a lot more going for itself than that one power-up. The difficulty was perfectly paced from beginning to end, each world feels like you're in a new game altogether, and the quantity and quality of power-ups always kept things fresh. Mario 3 is a game that's worth replaying over and over again, even without nostalgia, which is something that I just can't say about New Super Mario Bros. 2. I know that was a very condensed explanation as to why Mario 3 is great, and I could go into way more detail, but my producers are telling me to wrap it up and I'm not trying to get my ass kicked. And besides, when comparing Mario 3 against New Super Mario Bros. 2, you really don't have to go into too much detail anyway. Classic 2, New 1. Now it's time for Super Mario World vs. New Super Mario Bros. U, and we're only going to be looking at the original Mario U without the immensely underrated Luigi DLC, because I consider that to be a future release, much like the Super Mario Advance series. But with nostalgia running so high in Super Mario World and Mario U being the newest in the series, there's a lot of pressure on my part to just give the point to World, at least if I want to continue living with Jackie Chan's philosophy of not wanting any trouble. But it's really not that easy, because New Super Mario Bros. U is a lot better than most people give it credit for. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the heat it gets is well deserved though. I mean, it only looks like 5% better than Mario Wii, and it definitely wasn't the kind of game that the Wii should have had as its flagship launch title. But if you forget about all that malarkey, New Super Mario Bros. U is loaded with amazing gameplay, mainly thanks to the squirrel suit, which I think is the best power-ups in Super Mario World's cape. But speaking of Super Mario World, this game's deserving of any and all nostalgia involved. Unlike Mario U's phoned-in visuals, the graphics here are a work of art, and for a console like the Super Nintendo, this was the perfect kind of game to launch with. And I know stories in Mario games aren't very important, but I've gotta say that the way Super Mario World's story progresses is a lot more satisfying than any other game in the entire series, especially Mario U. It's not that important, but it does add a nice bit of charm. And I've never understood why Nintendo doesn't go the extra mile in the new Super Mario Bros. Series and be a little more imaginative with the story, even if it never has been the selling point. However, when it comes down to it, aside from the graphical style, everything that's great about Super Mario World's just done better in Mario U, which I'm sure is gonna get tons of shit spewed in the comments, but I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, Super Mario World had a bigger impact with more innovations to gaming, while Super Mario Bros. U just stuck to the formula like a good little boy. But if Mario U were somehow released in 1990, with graphics that could work on the Super Nintendo, of course, then it definitely would have made a bigger impact than Super Mario World. And if in that same universe you released Super Mario World in 2012, people would be pissed that you took away the wall jumps, spin jumps, hectic simultaneous 4-player, more power-ups, and all the extra bonus content as well, which is another thing about Mario U that's overlooked. I'm sure I'm gonna get kicked in my tiny little peep next time I'm out in the streets, but I'm gonna stand firm and say that aside from the art style, New Super Mario Bros. U is better than Super Mario World. Sure, I'm a little more likely to go back and play Super Mario World thanks to the fuzzy feelings it gives me, but remember, nostalgia's out the window for this video. And even with nostalgia in the conversation, Super Mario Bros. U is an incredibly solid game if you don't mind the uninspired graphics. So if you haven't played it on the Wii U, then you're blowing it if you don't pick it up on the Switch, since it comes with Luigi U and more extras as well. And no, Nintendo didn't pay me to say that. Classic 2, New 2. I could end things here on a safe draw, but there must be a winner. And besides, you can't really determine which series is better based on having 4 separate one-on-one comparisons. So next, let's look at the combined gameplay of each series in its entirety. The classic series feels like every game was made from the ground up, as opposed to just adding a few tweaks to the same engine. And that makes the classic series feel special since every game feels like it has its own identity, as opposed to the new Super Mario Bros. Games feeling much more connected, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But the first 4 Mario games all feeling completely original is definitely preferred since they managed to do it right. Although, given the fact that the new series was able to use the classic games as inspiration, it has the unfair advantage of knowing what makes a 2D Mario game fun and what doesn't. And aside from New Super Mario Bros. 2 being a lazily made game, it's still a lot better than Mario 1 since that game's pretty underwhelming without nostalgia and historical importance behind it, which really hurts the overall stock of the classic games. And for everything the classic series does well in gameplay, the new series does a little better more often than not. Having a wide variety of bonus multiplayer games with a simultaneous 4-player multiplayer mode for 2 of the main games. Hidden coins and bonus content in Mario U offer a lot more replayability overall. Plus, the haunted houses are a lot more clever in all the new Mario games than they were back in Super Mario World. The score might have been tied in the one-on-one comparisons, but if it's 4 versus 4, then it all comes down to Super Mario Bros. 1 just holding the team down for the classic series, and Mario U being the best game overall, again for the millionth time without nostalgia involved. So Classic 2, New 3. I'm sure I've said more than enough to ensure that the next time I'm seen in public I get milked, but god damn it, I cannot tell a lie. So with that being said, will I earn a little forgiveness with this next point, or will I just dig my own grave even deeper? Well, let's continue on with the music, which I'm sure people are gonna have strong emotions for. And I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, not only because it's an easy choice, but because the reasons are pretty simple as to why. So let me ask you, how many tunes can you hum from the new Super Mario Bros. Series? No, go ahead, take a second. Think real hard about it. Okay, now tell me how many you can hum from the classic series. That's right, while the music's just fine in the new series, the classics are hard to beat. And I know you may be thinking that this is a clear violation of the nostalgia rule, but if I ask you to hum tunes from the newer 3D Mario games, then I'm sure you wouldn't have a problem since they actually tried on those. Personally, I can remember a lot of music from the new Super Mario Bros. Games, but even if these games existed before the internet, when people didn't have that much to do besides play one of the 4 or 5 games they had, which were usually Mario games, then I still don't think they'd be as memorable as the classic soundtracks. Classic 3, New 3. Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, and would you look at that, we're at a tie. How dramatic, right? So let's look at the final and deciding point to decide which Mario series is better by judging which games have the better graphics. Which I've tried not talking about much until now, except for Mario U, where I had to call it out for looking exactly the same as the 3 games before it. But again, since we're not taking nostalgia into consideration, this should be a pretty easy point for the new series. So the fact that it's not's actually pretty sad. The original Super Mario Bros. Might not have aged that well graphically, but it's still not that bad, and 2, 3, and World all have distinct looks with beautiful colors that are just nice to stare at, whereas the new series was just the bare minimum of what Nintendo had to do graphically. I welcome 3D models over sprites, and the backgrounds look way more impressive for sure, but just because the newer games use more powerful hardware doesn't mean you have to accept them as visually superior, because when it comes down to it, we're really talking about art here, especially since none of these games are meant to look realistic anyway. Comparing the graphics of the new and classic 2D Mario games is like comparing Leonardo da Vinci spending weeks on something with a few crayons while giving his all, to giving him 20 minutes to make something with all his supplies. The classic series was clearly made with love from top to bottom, whereas the new games only focused on the gameplay and were developed with the attitude that since the classic consoles were less powerful, it wouldn't be hard to make these games look better. And because the belief was that Mario didn't get famous because of graphics in the first place, that they don't really matter. But personally, I think that while graphical power doesn't matter, graphics certainly do. And games that are made with heart and soul from top to bottom are the ones people get nostalgic for. So the fact that Nintendo would phone any aspect of a 2D Mario game in is heartbreaking considering how much money they actually make off them. It's not like the new series looks bad, it's just obvious that there wasn't much effort put into it besides the painted swampland in Mario U. If each game in the new series looked as cool as that, then maybe this point would be a different story. But since they don't, the classic series takes this category no question. Classic 4, New 3. So once and for all, we can finally say that the classic 2D Mario series is better than the new one, even without nostalgia involved. But what's even better than the classic 2D Mario series are the badasses who support this channel on Patreon. And if you want to make a cameo in a future video, then just send us pictures or videos of you rocking our t-shirts or coffee mugs that you can pick up in a link in the description. Which Mario series do you think is better though? Are you gonna beat me up for saying New Super Mario Bros. U is better than Super Mario World? Or did you grow up with the new series instead of the classics? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll pin whatever I find most entertaining or intriguing. Don't forget to subscribe if you're a sexy beast who likes being pandered to in end slates. And if you like and share these videos, it really does go a long way in helping this channel grow. My name's Cameron, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.